Welcome, everyone, to the L7C podcast NBA regular season prediction episode. As we've stated on our last pod, the NBA season is just upon us on day of recording. It is Saturday, and the NBA season starts this Tuesday. And with that being said, we got to have the NBA aficionado, the brainchild of all NBA news, Mr. Evan Debo. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good, Martin. The NBA season's going to be in full effect this week. Regular season starts. Final few days of preseason with some teams are already done, such as my beloved Cleveland Cavaliers, and are waiting for the 22nd when they start. And there's still a few more preseason games to be played and roster moves to happen, but nope, we're going to have some games and have a big Christmas slate coming up later next Friday.
That's right, man. And with this episode, we're going to talk about who we think are going to be the playoff teams. We're going to predict some regular season awards, who we think will become the NBA champions. Before we get into that, there's been a couple things that have happened during this preseason that we do want to hit on. And we didn't get to talk about this during the trade episode, but James Harden. James Harden he was skipping practice.
Packed on some LBs.
From that picture that we saw, it looked like he did pack on some pounds, but it's not been the greatest situation for the Rockets and him. He skipped on practices. He was down at clubs. He comes back finally. Looks like he's packed on some weight. What are you expecting out of James, and is he showing that he's really not a leader in the NBA?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're seeing that. There are already many questions about James Harden, based on how the playoffs have gone in the last few years, without them able to advance in a multitude of settings with multiple superstars. The Houston front office has done everything they can to appease James, make him happy. They've, absolutely gutted themselves of assets of any value. They've been able to get some first round picks back. They got a pick back from the DC Wiz in the Westbrook trade, a first rounder. They got 2 firsts for Robert Covington, sending him to the Portland Trailblazers. So they've been able to put some canned goods back in the cabinet, but they're still eating peanut butter on bread right now. They just don't have a whole lot to do. In terms of turning this roster over yet again for James. But as you alluded to, the nightclubs, skipping out on the beginning of practice, obviously hasn't played in a preseason game, yet. He has to get, I think, 6 negative tests in a row before he can come in. And that's the worst part, I think, to me too. So leadership, yada, yada, is, we're in the middle of a pandemic right now. All eyes are on you, and you're in all these dudes' IG stories, maskless as all get out, just flying around the country, carrying around who knows what have you. Is, people are deathly ill. As numbers keep shooting, COVID-19 wise, in terms of active cases, in terms of hospitalizations, in terms of ICUs like they'd never seen. That's just the worst part for me, Martin, is beyond the just awful behavior, awful leadership, is to just not care.
Yeah, to me, honestly, this isn't anything new for me with James Harden per se. I don't remember the exact year. I think it was was Kawhi's last year in San Antonio, and they were playing the Rockets in the semifinals, and the Rockets lost at home in Game 7 to the Spurs, and James Harden was at the nightclub that same night. This isn't new behavior with James. It almost is like, what's his give a damn level of his profession? He's good. He's one of the best in the league, and he's making a ton of money, but does he really care, per se, about his team and getting better, a la like Kobe or like LeBron or people like that?
So if you're the Rockets, he's allegedly got a list of teams he wants to be traded to and everything else. What else? The Rockets, in my opinion, the Rockets have done nothing wrong in terms of trying to appease this man. They've literally done everything. They tried it with Dwight when he still had some gas in the tank. didn't work out. They tried with CP3 and took the Warriors close one year. Then they turned CP3 into Russell Westbrook for a year. They've done anything and everything they can. They've given Eric Gordon big money. Again, as a viable bench and scoring option to put around him. I mean, they've done everything they can. I just don't. This is a great example of, in my opinion, the player empowerment stuff just going way too far. There's been rumors this week of James, doing the, if they've got multiple days off, we'll fly and go clubbing somewhere, or fly and, go just do something, be away from the team. And then, we'll come back and just do his normal James Harden things, which is, I mean, if it's not affecting his on-court performance, I guess, sure. But I mean, it's a bad culture in Houston of, just giving him way too much to deal with. And I mean, they're going to have to deal him. In the last 48 hours, we've heard that, hey, maybe former GM Daryl Morey is willing to dangle Ben Simmons out there in trades. And, that would be a great setting for a deal if Philadelphia is going to pull the trigger on that. From what I've read, allegedly Houston's looking for a little bit more, and Sixers are like, nah, like we're probably not even comfortable giving you Ben Simmons. So, I mean, there's still going to be games to be played. Whether or not James Harden actually plays a game with Houston before we start, I'm not entirely sure, but I mean, it seems like it's just inevitable in a matter of time at this point. Kind of like when Kyrie was holding the Cavs hostage with the threat to get his knee redone surgically and not suit up for them until eventually, as we got closer to training camp, he was a Boston Celtic. So probably good transition. Let's talk about Kyrie Irving. What did we see? What happened? Yeah, you see how I set that up, man?
That was awesome. But Kyrie, I don't know, man. It's like every year he says something or does something that has us scratching our heads. I don't know the quote per word for word, but it was something about calling people pawns.
When he refused media availability and was fined.
Yeah, towards the media. And then he was talking about he's an artist and they just want to have a space for artists to feel safe and things like that. And then Charles Barkley just came at him
I love that Charles Barkley piece.
Yesterday. It was just yesterday that he came at him saying, you're not an artist, you're a basketball player. And like, just play the game. Like Kyrie always acts like he's the smartest person. And
just shut the hell up, Charles Barkley says.
Yeah. So what I'm just like, man, Kyrie, I don't know what he does. And then yesterday you shared it that he was spraying the stuff,
incense. He was walking around TD Garden. I think my tweet was something along the lines of, like, imagine being basically a locker room cancer to two very impressionable guys and Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart and all those guys when they had taken him on a short-term deal and then walking away from it after hurting the culture. And they had the big thing at the beginning of the year where he said, I want to be a Celtic basically for years to come. I want to resign here, all those types of things, change it. But then just to get out all the bad vibes that you yourself created, we have to walk around before pregame warmups and just light some incense on fire and just kind of get our chakras in line or whatever. I'm not doing it justice in terms of the cultural piece there and why incense is burned and the history of it in culture. But yeah, Kyrie's just a strange dude, man. I mean, now at my core, I don't think Kyrie Irving is. I mean, there's plenty of bad people in the world. I mean, Kyrie Irving's not a bad person. Like I think in terms of, like, if we were to compare the Kyrie Irving and James Harden thing, they're disruptive. They're disruptive pieces for a locker room. They're disruptive outside of the basketball court, but for two very different reasons. I think James is kind of a I can do what I want kind of thing, and to an extent Kyrie is too. But I mean, Kyrie obviously he's made it known one way or another. He's bigger than basketball. He feels called to to tend to things and communities and everything else that are bigger than basketball. But he almost takes it just like way out into left field. Like, if for example, like if you're a firefighter and there's a house that's burning, you're not going to run 400 yards away to like a tree that could, this is a really out there analogy, I'm realizing, but a tree that like could potentially get on fire if the fire spreads and stuff. Just go to the house and put the fire out, I mean, that's kind of Kyrie in a nutshell. I mean, he's got the circular speak. And by circular speak, I mean just adjectives, nouns, pronouns, and verbs that just don't make sense. To him, it's almost like you were trying to flex that higher ideology of thinking, but without saying anything substantial, like ever. Like, I get the gist of what you're trying to do and your intentions. Again, I don't think he's a bad guy, but this is the kind of stuff you just scratch your head and you get the Charles Barkley quotes and you're like, man, just what are you doing? What, like the artist thing again? I mean, like I do get, I mean, I can appreciate, basketball is an art form. How Kyrie handles the ball and everything else can be argued as an art form. I'm all for those kind of conversations, but I mean, Charles Barkley's right. At the end of the day, you're putting a rubber or a leather ball through a hoop. I mean, at a very high level, obviously, but yeah, I mean, it's just, that's the one thing that could derail the Nets, I think, this year is just that dynamic there. And I mean, every once in a while, you listen to some long form on Kevin Durant, and Kevin Durant steps in those waters too. And I think that's why they can kind of connect how they have, and they're going to be a phenomenal 1-2 punch in Brooklyn. But yeah, I mean, what else is there to say, Martin, on Kyrie?
There's really nothing else to say on him. It's just the fact that he can say all these things, but he's just such a phenomenal basketball player where you're just like, if he's on the court and he's healthy, you're just like, wow, this guy's amazing. But the guy, I think you really hit everything on the head with Kyrie. And it's interesting that Kevin wanted to play with him in Brooklyn. So it'll be interesting to see what they do in a 72-game season. With that,
as we've seen with, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, with that being said, I did want to ask you just real quick, because the producer actually asked me to ask you these things. Were there any two rookies that impressed you during the preseason?
Any two rookies that have really impressed me in the preseason? I think first and foremost, I'd be remiss not to talk about my Cleveland Cavaliers and one Isaac Okoro. He kind of had a down night last night, but in 4 preseason games, his first game against Indiana, 32 minutes, he had 18 points, 4 turnovers, but I mean, very first game, but three steals right off the bat, and that's in his very first game, including that contested defensive shot he had on one end, and then ended up getting the and one layup for the game winner in the waning second. So I mean, he was huge in his first NBA preseason game. The next game, December 14th against the Pacers, added 15, and then added 10 against the Knicks on December 16th, and just an awful all-around game for the Cavs last night on December 18th. Only 2 points in 18 minutes, so didn't see nearly enough of that. But I mean, there were so many issues with the Cavs last night. It was absolutely atrocious in a 119-83 loss to New York. And too, I gotta say, while again, I think I'm going to kind of split my second person who's impressed me into two here. But I've really liked what I've seen, surprisingly, so far out of young Mr. Ball in Charlotte. So I mean, again, we know what he's going to be offensively. He's going to be a struggle. He's shooting the ball, but he's turned it around in the last few preseason games. I mean, just the court vision, Martin, is just absolutely amazing. But one name that I don't think is talked about a lot, and obviously I saw a lot of him last night, was Emmanuel Quickley, the point guard draftee for the Knicks. So obviously they went with the Dayton kid in their first pick, but kind of had a really big coming out party last night. The Cavs had no answer for him. So he's only played in 3 preseason games, just 2 points in the first game, 9 in the second game on 3 of 11 shooting, with 7 assists. So you like to see that kind of court vision from a rookie earlier to be racking up assists like that. But last night he really went off in 28 minutes. He had 22 points, 7-12 from the floor, 3-5 from deep. Was efficient at the line, 5-7. I think he was a 90% shooter at Kentucky to go along with 5 assists and 5 steals. I mean, he really filled it up last night. That's a name that I'd encourage listeners to watch out for and say, man, this Quickly kid, like he could be something. So anytime you get a chance to check out a Knicks game, which I don't know if a lot of people like the Cavs would probably be seeking out, as bad as those two teams have been, look out for young Mr. Quickly.
Look out for him. As I've been said, I'm definitely going to be keeping him on my radar now that you've put him out there. So with the Cavs and the Knicks, they're both in the Eastern Conference. So let's preview the Eastern Conference first, since we're already in the East.
Yeah.
And I guess with the East, there's some new. I mean, Russell Westbrook's at Washington. Now everyone's seeing the emergence of the Miami Heat. They can't just sneak up on people. So I guess, Evan, do you want to just shout out who you think the 8 are going to be in the playoffs, or how do you want to do it? It's all up to you.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going through, obviously Milwaukee and Boston are going to be there. Toronto, I think, is going to take another step down of sorts this year, but I mean, they're going to be in there. They're going to be fighting for a top 4 seed. So Milwaukee, Toronto, Boston, Miami is going to be in there. Philadelphia, I think, is going to make some huge strides under Doc Rivers now, and just how they're setting things up. And I mean, who knows if when it's all said and done, James Harden's on the team here in another month. I mean, I don't put a lot of stock in that, but I mean, at the end of the day, Harden's got to get moved somewhere. So let's see. That puts us at 6.
Yep.
I think 6 of the 8. So, and this is obviously in no particular order. So other teams that are going to contest. So let's just go ahead and throw Brooklyn in there.
Yep.
I really think Brooklyn's going to be vying for if those two stay healthy, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, along with Karis LeVert, Jared Allen, all those guys. Like I really could see them, Martin. I mean, if they don't have to be healthy for the season, but if they check the box and make the playoffs, we've seen where teams like the Heat can just get on a run and everything else. Like I would not be surprised at all if the Brooklyn Nets come out of the East. I mean, that's almost premature to say with the type of injuries that the Nets, another James Harden rumored destination, has had with the injuries with Kevin, obviously, and Kyrie. But I really like Brooklyn. And then from there, I mean, you've got, the Pacers, obviously, that are super, super reliable. The one of the few teams from last year I've not said yet. Orlando, depending on how some of that stuff works out. Cole Anthony's looked fairly good so far as a rookie coming in. Obviously, they lose DJ Augustine. But again, we got Russell Westbrook with the Wizards that's going to help compete. And then, anybody from, I mean, I really think that there's some parity with some of those bottom 4 or 5. But a lot of people think the Hawks could potentially be that 8 seed. But I mean, I think it's going to ultimately be kind of an Atlanta-Washington conversation there. And then again, we'll have those playing games, and I've got my fingers crossed the Cleveland Cavaliers will hopefully be in contention to get into those playing games for the 8th and 7th seed.
Yeah, mine were, I think, the same exact as yours. I think I had a little bit of an order. I think with the Kevin Durant and Kyrie, to be honest, if they're both healthy, I think I had them as my number 1 seed. And
I think so. I think that's a good pick.
And then I had Milwaukee 2, and I was bullish because we've talked about this many of times. It's a make or break year. I had Philadelphia as my 3rd seed.
Mm-hmm.
And then Miami and Boston, they were literally just flip flop. I literally had both of them 4th and 5th, like written on my notepad. And then I did have Toronto and Indiana because they're both reliable teams, and I think they'd be tough outs for anyone. And the 8th spot, just because of Russell Westbrook, I did have Washington. I feel like we're going to get another. He's going to be very motivated, and it might be another triple double average year for Westbrook. But I feel like that's just going to get him an 8th seed in an early. And I also want the Westbrook versus Durant in the playoffs. So that's why I also.
Oh, how fun would that be?
That's why I had Washington at 8 and Brooklyn at 1. So that was mine. So mine was, and I agree with Atlanta. I mean, they have Rondo and Trey, and they made some moves, but I think next year would be the year I think they break through, if they ever break through. But pretty much the same. I didn't have Orlando or anything like that, and I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I think it's between Washington, Atlanta for whoever that final seed is. I mean, and who knows? I mean, for as bad as the Cavs have looked in the past two, I mean, it's preseason. For bad as the Cavs have looked in the last 2 games against the Knicks, I mean, they beat Indiana in back-to-back preseason games without Colin Sexton, without Kevin Porter, and without Kevin Love. And Indiana had essentially all their guys, I think, maybe except for Miles Turner. Oladipo just doesn't look himself. And I mean, Malcolm Brogdon is a great player. Sabonis is a great player, but I mean, who knows? Maybe both those teams will get in Indiana or really be the team that slides this year. And we know injuries are going to be a part of this. So I mean, there's every team's about an injury away from dropping from a top 4 caliber team to a bottom 4 caliber team. So, but it is the East, and it's generally viewed as weak. So we'll see how the cards lie. So let's shift over to the Western Conference. Martin, who are your 8 to make the playoffs in 2020-2021?
Did you want my order or just the 8?
Give me your order. Go ahead.
All right. Number one seed, I actually still have the Los Angeles Lakers.
I thought you were going to say Clippers.
No. No.
That was a joke.
Actually, it's actually going to be funny where I have number 2, I have the Denver Nuggets. Number 3, I actually have the Dallas Mavericks. Number 4, which I was very hesitant, I actually do have the Clippers. I almost was going to put them at 5, but then I have Portland at 5, Utah 6, Golden State 7, and the Phoenix Suns at 8.
Very interesting. Yeah, Phoenix obviously looking to make the playoffs here for the first time in a while. High expectations with Chris Paul coming over and some of the draftees they've had. Interesting to note, if you put any stock in preseason, which I know you don't personally, the Phoenix Suns are 0-4 so far, and have yet to get a win as a Booker Paul tandem. So, I mean, for me, I think obviously in no particular order of sorts. I mean, with the exception of the Lakers, I think the Lakers will be the 1 seed there. I do like your Denver. I'm just guess I'm going to have to rank them, aren't I? Denver, I do like is the 2 seed. 3 seed. I like. Let's see. I do like the Utah Jazz to be back up there as well. I joke all the time when it comes to playoff time that, you know, a lot of times Denver and Utah just look like the same team with those guards and those bigs of sorts. Even though Jokic is the best center in the game, not to compare him to Gobert completely outright, but so I think those are my top 3. I'll stick the Clippers in there at 4. Oklahoma City was 5 last year, but I expect them to fall out. I will put at 5 the Dallas Mavericks. Okay. At 6, I'm going to go Portland.
Okay.
And then for the final 2, this is tough. I'm gonna put Golden State back in there at 7. Again, just it's so tough to overcome the Clay loss, but I mean, you can't. I don't think if Curry's healthy, you can keep them out. And I mean, we've got some tough ones here in contention with that 8 seed. You've got Phoenix, you've got New Orleans, Minnesota, Memphis. Memphis again was so close last year of breaking it in. I'm going to have to go Phoenix in at 8 as well. And again, I mean, in terms of those, I think those other teams are going to make the play-in games. If you told me that New Orleans ended up being that team or Memphis ended up being that team, I would be surprised. Ja Morant and Zion Williamson are the much heralded rookies from last year's draft. I mean, they're gonna have a say before it's all said and done if they can stay on the court. More in Zion's case than in Morant's, but Yeah, I mean it's gonna be another great season, Martin, and that's who I'm looking at for the West.
Yeah, yeah, because we both had Phoenix today. I just really believe that Chris Paul is really going to bring, which is crazy because Devin Booker can play, but he's really going to bring out like like Devin Booker's full potential. And if you notice, because we're both thinking this trade's going to happen, neither of us had the Houston Rockets in the playoff in the West. Just saying.
Yeah, we didn't. They were 4 seed last year. But you go down to John Wall and you think the Harden trade's going to happen. I mean, I just don't see it. So I've got them falling out, along with Oklahoma City too. So I mean, we'll see how things fall. And neither of us really commented on Minnesota. I mean, we'll see
Nope.
how things go too with D'Lo over there. And again, you mentioned the last part about how much Karl Anthony Towns has been through. And the number one overall pick so far in preseason, Mr. Anthony Edwards, really has kind of struggled mightily so far, getting some ground underneath him in his first few preseason games too. So I mean, we'll see. They definitely don't have as much depth as a team like New Orleans or Phoenix have, but there's going to be plenty of movement too in a shortened season. I mean, we say this every year. Can Kevin Love be dealt this year? If you can bring maybe a stretch like Kevin out to Phoenix or something too. I mean, there's all those kinds of moves that could not saying it's going to happen or I've heard that, but there's all those kind of deals that are going to be, okay. And then shoot a team way up in terms of contention. So
did you, because I actually thought about this for a split second because we didn't mention them too. San Antonio, do we think now they have a full year? Do you think Pop can pull a magic trick and have them fighting for an 8th spot?
Well, I mean, I think you can never count out Pop. But I just don't see that they've got the talent right now. Yeah. I mean, they basically run the same team back, with the exception of, they've got Devin Vassell, their high draft pick back with them this year too. I mean, they're basically running it all back with your Jakob Portals and your DeJounte Murrays and DeMar DeRozan. I believe this is the last year of his deal. Does he get dealt if things don't go good? Rudy Gay, the aging wing there, and obviously the Marcus Aldridge. I mean, it's just you never count them out. But I mean, they're also 0-3 to start the preseason too. I mean, I still have them on the outside looking in.
Yeah, agreed. I just wanted to make sure we talk about the man Pop because that guy is the guy when it comes to coaching some basketball. But with that being said, that was our previews there. You want to take it a step further and who you have in the conference finals?
Who? Let's hold that for later down the road. I'd rather talk. Let's chat about maybe MVP odds, maybe award odds here.
Okay. I have my list of MVP. I also have who I think will be Defensive Player of the Year list here.
Okay.
I got a couple of those. With MVP, I know I'm looking at NBA's GM survey, and 32% of them said Giannis was going to get a third straight. I actually don't think that's going to happen.
It's so tough to get that many in a row. I mean, again, LeBron only has 4, and he's clearly been the best player in the league since 2003.
Yeah, it's something. So I don't think that's going to happen. I honestly think if what we talked about earlier in the East, if they are both healthy and coming back from an Achilles, I think Kevin Durant's going to win MVP.
That's kind of he's definitely in my top 2. So I'll place him there. So I mean, I would not be, and it's really a 1A with Durant, right? I mean, he's still a bad dude, like a bad dude in a bad way, with the little hezzy pull up jumpers from 3, and he can get anywhere on the court he wants. And he's 7 foot. I mean, he's the 2-time Finals MVP. I mean, he's just a handful, and I just don't see. I mean, I really think that Boston's going to slide a little bit this year. Some of those teams that have really done well in the wake of LeBron moving to the West, they're going to be hurting now that Durant's in the East. I mean, I could see the Nets coming out of the East and heading to the finals potentially. But no, I mean, I like him up that high as well. Who else do you have?
And my number two, well, yeah, I had him number one just for story because coming back from it's a great story media wise. But number two, I did have Luka Doncic, number two.
And that's a good segue because that I'm going to flip you there. So I've got Luka as my MVP for the year. I mean, if the voters have told me, and why I'm leaning this way, again, I could easily see it being Durant too, but why I'm leaning this way is the voters is in the context of the last 5 to 10 years are like they almost get bored with success. Like they're tired of seeing. I mean, like look at how many times can James Harden average like over 30, 32, 34 points a game and still lose out. I mean, they almost get bored of success and they want hey, who's the new breakout star besides Harden, LeBron, and we're going to get to a spot with Giannis too. So yeah, that's why I think I've flipped them so far is with Durant with the runner up, and obviously Giannis and LeBron are going to be in the conversation, and who knows? I mean, maybe Lillard has an extension of what he did in the bubble and just goes on a tear this year. But yeah, I've got Luka 1 and Kevin Durant 2.
Hey, so we basically have the same 2, just flip. I like it. Defensive player of the year, I'm just going to be honest. I had Anthony Davis. I felt like he could have won last year, and I just feel like he's going to be on a mission to get that, and I feel like he's going to really step it up now, being a champ. So I had Anthony Davis winning Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. So he led the league in steals last year. Obviously, he got hurt and didn't make it with the team too far into the playoffs and the bubble just with that injury. But I mean, for what Ben Simmons lacks offensively, he is an all NBA defender. I think your prediction's probably a little bit more likely. I mean, the defensive player of the year thing generally shades towards rewarding big guys who are great rim protectors than it does guys on the perimeter and things in the Jimmy Butlers of the world and stuff like that. Put him on the best perimeter guy every night. But I mean, yeah, I mean, Ben Simmons is who I'm going with at 1. I do like, Anthony Davis also in the conversation. That'd probably be my 2 there. But yeah, there's so many different ways you could go. And I mean, at the end of the day too, I mean, you still got your Kawhis out there, still got your Marcus Smarts, and we'll see how Drew Holiday, another great defender, transitions into Milwaukee. So I mean, if the Sixers are going to have any kind of postseason success, it's going to be dependent upon Ben Simmons being able to shut down a Pascal Siakam on one night, and then a couple nights later tackle Kevin Durant, and then Jaylen Brown's all the way down. So it's kind of a sink or swim pick for me, but I'm going with Ben Simmons.
Fair enough. Did you have a most improved player?
I did, but why don't you go ahead with yours?
So there was a lot of different things I thought could happen. I honestly thought I was thinking of Michael Porter Jr. I thought of him. I did think of De'Aaron Fox. I thought of everyone in the West. I even thought of Zion and proving in the fact that if he's making some jump shots and just, I guess, the media thing, and the media loves Zion. So if he's making some jump shots, playing better defense, comes in better condition, that they're like, oh my gosh, this guy's significantly better than he was the few games we saw him. But I think I thought he was going to have a breakout season, and I was really leaning towards Michael Porter Jr.
That's who I have as well. I think when we look back, I mean, again, another guy that, I mean, a lot of people had questions on. He slid far in the draft to the Nuggets, 2-3 years ago at the very end of the lottery, and was in contention to be the number 1 pick. I was mad at the Cavs that we didn't take him there. I mean, again, like, how many players have successfully come back from a back surgery? That's devastating. Look what it's done to Tiger Woods. Look what it's done to Steve Kerr, even as a coach, unable to coach in a lot of years. Long stretches of games. Mike Brown's filled in for him. I mean, everything I've ever heard about having back surgery from people who've had back surgery is like literally like avoid it like the plague. Like it's necessary, but also like the drawbacks from it. I mean, it's obviously each one's different. Each vertebrae you're working on or whatever Michael ended up having, I can't recall off the top of my head, is a possibility. But Michael Porter, yeah, I mean, he's he's just got star written all over him. Another long guy, 6'11", physical. He really stepped on, and I'm just waiting for him to supplant, Gary Harris or step in there at the small forward spot and be the regular starter. But he's a heck of a 5-tool player, as they say. He's solid defensively. He rebounds good. I'd like to see him develop a little bit more in the passing game, but he's a handful and a young guy. I like that pick as well.
Who'd you have for rookie of the year? Because I feel like this is going to be a wide open rookie of the year race.
I mean, I definitely think it could, but in what I've seen so far, I mean, this could come back to hurt me, but I mean, I really, and obviously we haven't seen James Wiseman yet. What we've seen of Anthony Edwards has kind of been like, oof, like he's got some growth to do too. So I mean, the rest of the top 5 there, Denny with the Wiz had a really solid game, preseason game against the Nets last week. I think he was a perfect 7 of 7 from the field. Can't remember the exact number, but definitely was perfect from the field. Great court vision, everything else. But I mean, I know my Cavs bias is showing here, but I do like Isaac Okoro to be that guy, man. I mean, he's got shoulders like bowling balls. I mean, he's just a physical freak who plays in the passing lanes. And what I've seen so far, I mean, getting deflections, and for a kid that, everybody was kind of afraid of to an extent because of his jumper, he looks good. His jumper looks good. I mean, I think with him, it's always been an art conversation, but I mean, he's hitting corner threes. He's never going to be an ISO guy I don't think, to get it on his own. I mean, maybe he'll work into something that's, he can be a little bit more pick and choose, coming off of screens and stuff like that, but and hitting that with some consistency. But his jumpers look solid. He's just a really great 2-way player. And then potentially a wide open year, when it's all said and done. Yeah, I think Isaac Okoro is definitely going to be in consideration, if not win it. So that's my hometown, completely biased pick. So how about you?
I think he has a chance. I think he does. Right now, I think LaMelo would win.
And that, I mean, again, and he's that certainly could be. I mean, I see a lot of his brother in him. And no, I'm not talking about Jello. I'm talking about Lonzo. But I mean, yeah, just the court vision is so. I could see that one too. I mean, I think his shooting prospects. Alonzo's cleaned up his shot a little bit, but I do think. I mean, his shooting form mechanics are still bad, but it's somewhat more consistent than Lonzo's, I'll say, in terms of where they both were coming into year one in the league. But I mean, yeah, I mean, he's gonna. The Charlotte Hornets are going to get up and down with some guys with Bridges and Gordon Hayward, who's got a little bit of a hand thing going on right now. Gordon Hayward injured, just like death and taxes, like you almost got to expect at this point. But yeah, I mean, I could certainly see Lonzo too. I think he'll certainly be in the conversation as well.
I think the only award we have left is Coach of the Year.
Well, do you got a name?
This is tough. I really,
as of December 19th, your pick is for the shortened 72-game season. We think will be 72 games. They haven't released the full schedule yet, but they're playing 72. Who do you got?
Eric Spoelstra.
Could be a little bit. We've seen that before, where you're almost. I mean, even if they don't have quite the year that they had last year, that you reward for the previous year's postseason and regular season success, basically. But no, I mean, I'm not going to fight you on that. I think if we expect the Nets to go as far as they're going to be, I'm going with Steve Nash.
Yeah, I almost said his name. I just couldn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's again, there's so much riding on that. I feel like any week Kyrie could quit in protest of something happening in some country that we don't know about, which probably is a good cause, but it's one of those things that if he feels that that's his way to impact change and he's going to do it, obviously the on the court stuff, which is secondary. I mean, again, I'm not trying to say basketball is more important, but that could hurt the success of the team and the coach and these awards we're picking that, again, don't matter in the grand scheme of things. But I mean, there's so many different things, and with Kyrie's injury history, and does Durant's Achilles and knees hold up to those kinds of things that there's a lot to be considered there. But I do think the Nets are going to surprise a lot of folks this year, and as we've seen with Mike Brown and Ty Lue at the helm of the Cavs with LeBron, if you got the best player or one of the top 3 best players in the world on your team, the coach is going to reap the benefits of that. So that's my pick, Steve Nash.
Fair enough. Evan, anything else you want to hit on before we sign off for this one? Because we will be back before Christmas.
Yes. Just on my end, again, thanks to the listeners for tuning in, talking, listening hoops. Appreciate our producer submitting that rookie question hitter there. So keep sending those in as you're listening back there, Justin. And then so he clearly obviously listened to the last time when we asked for questions to be submitted. So, but no, I wish everybody a safe holiday season. Hope in the midst of all the craziness of the season that some people are unable to obviously to get with close family, extended family, with everything going on, and trying to play it safe, that they invest some time, whether that's basketball or working out, into their mental health, do the self-love thing. Invest in yourself, do what you got to do to keep your mind sharp and amidst all these frustrations. And we've got vaccines coming to healthcare workers and everything else. It's also a promising time on that front. So looking forward to turning the page in another 12, 13 days to 2021. And hope everybody has a good holiday.
Yeah, I have nothing to add on that except NBA Tuesday, December 22nd. The Golden State Warriors versus the Brooklyn Nets, 7 p.m. TNT, and then 10 p.m. the Clippers versus the Lakers, TNT. The Clippers have to sit there and watch the Lakers get their championship ring, so that's funny. And then Wednesday, the Bucks at Boston, 7:30 on TNT, and then Dallas at Phoenix, 10:30 ESPN, and we will go over the Christmas games when we come back in a couple days. And with that being said, man, Evan just gave the great ending, so I can't add anything else to it besides thank you, everyone, for listening to the L7C podcast. We'll be back to preview the Christmas games. You guys take care.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the L7C podcast. Be sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe to the channel. Follow us on all social media platforms, and we'll be talking to you guys soon. Take care.